Good evening, fellow leaders. Welcome to How to Escape the Matrix. I'm your host, Hannah Thorsen, and I'm going to teach you how to escape the Matrix and become the true natural-born leader that you are. There's no specific first step you have to take in order to begin this journey, so this isn't going to be a step-by-step process. Rather, I'm going to share a lot of information that your intuition will guide you as to what you like the most and want to learn more about. I'm happy you're here, as this means you've reached a period in time where you want to change your life for the better. Not only for yourself, but for those around you. This week, I will be discussing how to dive into your past and learn to change your subconscious programming. This one's gonna get a little deep. Beware. Hello, welcome back. We are nearing the end of this series. It's kind of interesting. I'm excited though. I think this is probably going to be one of the most beneficial episodes out of all of them. But yeah, this episode's all about pretty much diving into your past and learning about why you operate the way that you do now. I think I discussed it briefly in one of my other episodes, but a lot of your inclinations to the way you perceive life and the way that you go about life is due to your subconscious and the things that your subconscious has learned throughout the years. And a lot of what your subconscious has learned was actually brought up during your childhood. And obviously that makes sense because when you're first learning about this world, you're learning about it as a kid, and so whatever you are taught when it comes to your emotions, how to regulate your emotions, and just how you perceive the world, that all comes down to how you were raised. And so one of the main things is, in order to kind of dive into that and dive into what your subconscious has learned, you have to go into your past, which means you have to do shadow work. And shadow work is very difficult because it basically requires you to relive experiences that you originally just put away because that was your way of dealing with it. Like for example, maybe you got into a car crash or something like that, and now you're forever terrified of driving a car, being in a car. That would be an example of shadow work. You've got something tied to cars and the experience of driving that causes you to have this fearful reaction to what it is. There's a way to dive down into that trauma and learn like what you need to do to basically shift that to make it so you're not scared of driving anymore. So yeah, basically shadow work, your inner shadows, everybody has an inner shadow, and it's basically just the parts of you that you subconsciously reject because you don't like those parts of you. And it's shadows are a part of all of us, and it's not something to be angry at or upset at. And when you do shadow work, it's not meant to look at those parts of yourself with judgment. You're meant to look at those parts of yourself and figure out why those parts of you are coming out in the way that they are, and what you can do to soothe those parts of you and genuinely come to a place of an acceptance of like what those parts are and what you can do to change your perception of them. When you ignore your shadow work, typically that will feel like low self-esteem, anxiety, self-sabotage, inflated ego. The list goes on and on. But when you start doing your shadow work, it's going to hurt. It's going to be painful because you've been subconsciously rejecting those parts of you for so long that it's like, I don't want to relive that experience. I don't want to feel those feelings again. And when you do that, you're blocking yourself from accepting who you are and accepting the reality of the situation. A lot of people will not dive into that because they don't want to feel the feelings. But the reality is, in order to fully move on from an experience, you have to relive those feelings if you didn't work on them before, because in order to relive them, you feel those feelings and now you have to release those feelings. If you don't release your feelings, they just get pent up and you just harbor resentment. And then the harboring of resentment turns into stress, which turns into anxiety, which turns into low self-esteem, which then, or on the flip side, will turn into an inflated ego. It really depends. But you have to learn that those feelings you have to relive, you have to feel them, or else you're not going to be able to release them. So when you do this, when you allow yourself to feel your feelings, and you allow yourself to dig into those shadows, and you think to yourself, I actually accept these parts of myself. You know, I feel like I've let you down. I feel like I've had to have external validation to have those parts of me soothed. And it's like, no, if you really want to work past it, and your shadows are never going to go away, but if you really want to work past it, you've got to learn how to accept yourself and love yourself, and learn how to bring that love to those shadows on your own accord, not on anybody else's. And when you do this, your reality will automatically start feeling more loving and accepting, because the love is coming from yourself. It's not required from your outside circumstances. Because again, what you do and how you think makes the reality around you. And yeah, so when you truly accept yourself and you love yourself, your reality is going to be more loving and accepting. And you're going to realize that even the bad parts of you are just as deserving of love as the good parts. And when you heal from your childhood, you heal from the ways of how your parents treated you, and you learn how to kind of look at your reality in a different way. This will help you kind of figure out your attachment style when it comes to friends, relationships, anything like that. Like, for example, I had for the longest time an anxious attachment style. I was taught that, I had to put my needs down for my parents, and I couldn't express myself, because if I did, I felt like they wouldn't love me or they wouldn't care. And once I kind of learned about my anxious attachment, I started realizing, that I'm kind of holding on to people that aren't good for me. I would stay in relationships and friendships, and I wouldn't put my boundaries down, and I wouldn't express myself, because I was always afraid that if I did, they would just leave, because what I was feeling wasn't valid, and I felt like, my feelings were too much or not enough, and it just took a toll on me. It made me feel like I wasn't worthy of being in solid relationships. But once I started working on that and genuinely diving into that attachment and realizing how I was viewing myself in relationships, my whole reality changed. Now I'm a lot more secure. I have boundaries. I know my worth. I'm not questioning who I am and what I can provide for someone else. I'm not harping on myself or believing that I'm a bad person for having feelings, because feelings are normal. So once you learn your attachment style and you learn how to regulate your emotions, not how you used to as a child, but learning a completely new way of how to regulate your emotions, you start taking steps to change your attachment style, because the way that you were raised, the way that you were taught to see life, is not forever. You have the power to change it, and you can change it. I used to be extremely pessimistic. I used to believe everybody was out to get me. I used to believe that I was the most loving person and got the worst luck, because that was just how life was. That's not how life is. That's not how life will ever be. There is always a yin and yang. There is always a balance. There is always good and bad. It's just learning how to utilize good and bad, and how to see both sides as, launching you into your dream life. And this, I think, is also kind of another valuable thing, is like a lot of times people will, there's like different stages of relationships, and like the paradigms within them that you have. And there's typically 3 stages. So the first stage is codependency. You basically learn to only rely on your partner, and your partner is the only one responsible for your happiness. And if they do anything that you don't like, or that you feel like they don't like, then your mood shifts, and it's just completely reliant on that person. And so that's the first thing. So once you go through that, then typically the next step after that is you become hyper independent. So you start thinking to yourself, that didn't work out, I don't need anybody else, I'm strong, I'm independent, I don't care about anybody else's opinion. I'm just gonna do me, and that's all that's all I need. And then the third one goes into interdependence, and that is where you ideally want to be, which is you look at both sides of the scenario. You look at what they can bring to the table, what you can bring to the table, and you allow yourself to depend on them, but not to the point of affecting your emotions. You kind of just look at them as a genuine partner, a genuine confidant that can accentuate the love and the happiness that you have, but they can never take it away. And you don't look at yourself as someone that, I've got to figure everything out on my own, but you look at the relationship as a two-way street where you understand that things have to go both ways. You can't just do things alone. You can't just let them do things alone. It has to be a team effort type of thing. A lot of people don't even get to interdependence. They usually stop at hyper-dependence, or they stay in codependence if they have an anxious attachment style and they don't work on it. But hyper-independence comes from not really being able to forgive your past and not really being able to see your past as a good thing. A lot of people that are hyper-independent will basically see their past as some horrible thing that happened to them, and then they just moved on, and it is what it is. And that reality where you basically just moved on from it, but you didn't allow yourself to process or release those emotions, it's actually harbored resentment. And if anybody were to ask you, how did you heal from it? And you say, it just is what it is. You didn't actually heal from it. You just basically saw that experience as a bad experience and something that the universe put you through, and you didn't deserve it, and now you're on to the next one. And instead of seeing it as you did deserve that experience because it taught you how to love yourself properly, when you go through a bad experience, especially when it comes to relationships, you have to learn why that person was put in your life, and you can't give them crap for what they've taught you, because if you hadn't met that person and they didn't teach you through the bad ways of how they were treating you how to love yourself, how would you know? How would you know how to navigate the fields of your self-worth if there wasn't people in your life teaching you what your self-worth was, if they weren't challenging you, if everybody in your life loved you, if everybody in your life cared for you, if everybody in your life just, they were always there for you and you were the center of their world, like, there's no fun in that, there's no evolution in that, there's no challenge in that, and if anything, it just gives you an inflated ego and a dystopian reality where you just think you're the bomb all the time, and that's not the case. The bad experiences and the bad people that are put on your path, they're meant to teach you to love yourself, and they're meant to teach you something specific about how you perceive your reality. Everybody has bad parts, everybody has shadows, and so those people that treated you really poorly, they were just operating from their unhealed shadows. So to be angry at them when you have those shadows yourself, you're rejecting your shadows. Because you're saying, I can't love your shadows because your shadows hurt me. So I can't love my shadows because my shadows hurt me. How does that work? You can't practice forgiveness and love for somebody else if you can't even love yourself and you can't love your own shadows. So that's just a projection of, well, I can't love my shadows, I can't love the bad parts of myself, so I can't love you, and I'm sorry, but you are the reason why I am this way, and I don't forgive you, and it is what it is. You did what you did, and I'm gone. I didn't deserve that. See you later. And yeah, you didn't deserve it, but you know what? You did deserve to learn your self-worth. So you learn your self-worth, and what comes after that? Forgiveness. I forgive you. I forgive you for treating me this way. Thank you. Thank you for coming into my life and treating me absolutely horribly. You know why? Because you taught me what I needed to really love myself, dig down deep into those shadows and learn where was I neglecting myself. Where was I believing that within this relationship I wasn't enough? Where was I believing that I couldn't be what you wanted me to be? There's a lot of different questions that are probably going to come up, but yeah, it's a very deep process, this whole thing, from shadow work to forgiveness to learning your attachment styles to learning how you perceive your past and figuring out what your definition of forgiveness is. Because for me, forgiveness is accepting that person, accepting their shadows, understanding that they're coming from a place of ego and they just haven't been able to heal those parts of themselves that are ultimately damaging themselves. There's a lot that goes into it. And one thing I've learned too is when somebody treats you poorly and they're not changing and they're not making an active effort to change, a lot of people will say, you don't accept me as I am because you wouldn't leave me, or you wouldn't judge me for this, so you don't accept me as I am. In reality, when someone is treating you very poorly, accepting them looks like leaving, because you understand that you can't change them and you're not in control of that. And if they're not going to change and accept you for who you are, you're accepting them for them by leaving, because you're saying, hey, I love you, I respect you, I understand that this is where you're at and this is where I'm at, and I have no desire to make you feel bad. I have no desire to make you change who you are. I have no desire to change anything about you, because that is your job. You have to heal. You have to choose to change those things about you. And if you don't want to do that, then I respect that, and I'm going to leave. I don't want to create a dynamic where I'm making you feel bad, and where I'm feeling bad because I'm not being treated the way I deserve. So yeah, at the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to, you have to work on the parts of yourself that you do not like. You have to relive experiences so you can bring those feelings up, so you can then sit with them, understand why they feel that way, think about it, learn where you can bring love to those aspects of yourself. And yeah, and shadow work isn't like a one and done type of thing. It's something that you're doing on a constant basis. It's basically learning how to heal on a constant basis. You're always going to go through good and bad, probably mostly every day. So the main thing you've got to learn is how to heal from basically everything that goes on, how to accept everything as it is, and just learn how everything around you is happening for a reason. And when things are starting to make you anxious or whatever, that's your shadows talking to you. So you got to dig into that and be like, hey, why are you feeling anxious? Why are you feeling bad? Like, let me see what I can do to make you feel better. You have to be your best friend. You have to be your lover. You have to be that person you want others to be, because if you're not there for yourself, nobody else is going to be. Please, if you take anything out of this episode, know and remember that you are not your past. Your past was meant to teach you a lesson, and your future is going to teach you a lesson. Your present is going to teach you a lesson. You are not your past. You may have made mistakes in your past, and that's okay. If you didn't make those mistakes, you'd make them now, and that would be, you wouldn't want to make the same mistakes again. So be happy that you made those mistakes. Be happy that you felt what you felt. Learn to truly love and accept yourself for who you are, and embrace everything about yourself, the good and the bad, and forgive. Just truly learn how to forgive. Come to a place of love and acceptance of every single person in your life. From the moment you were born till now, think about every single person that's ever wronged you and learn how to love them, learn how to forgive them, learn why they acted out of that trauma, why they acted out of it, why they did what they did. And here's the thing, your past trauma does not excuse your behavior, it explains your behavior. So when somebody acts out of their trauma, you can forgive them, but you don't have to allow them to continue being that way. So you can leave, you can put down your boundaries, you can go about different ways to seeing how you can still accept this person in your life without putting yourself down. And if that's not possible, if everything that they do is putting you down, then you just have to accept that as it is, understand that they're not meant to be in your vibration anymore, and you've got to go. It's just, you have to use your discernment with a lot of things. Trust your intuition, trust your gut, know why you're acting a certain way, and just take genuine steps to changing and trying to be there, not just for others, but really for yourself. I hope this helped. There was kind of a lot of stuff that went into this, with like the different paradigms and attachments and shadow work and forgiveness and all that. But I think this will be really helpful. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I know this is a lot of in-depth stuff. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'm really proud of you for getting here and for being here, and for choosing to really work on yourself and work on this reality of yours. We'll see you guys next Sunday. And remember, experience does not equal potential. Peace.